If you've been waiting for your green card, if you're on an H-1B visa, or if you have family members trying to immigrate legally to the United States, what just happened in the House of Representatives could completely reshape your immigration timeline. And most people have no idea what these bills actually do. 3 immigration reform bills just passed the House. One of them addresses the green card backlog that has left hundreds of thousands of employment-based applicants stuck in limbo for years. Another targets illegal immigration enforcement. And the third reshapes how asylum claims are processed at the border. But here's what almost nobody is talking about. Passing the House is only step 1. The Senate hasn't voted yet, the President hasn't signed anything, and the details inside these bills contain provisions that could help some immigrants while creating new barriers for others. If you're waiting for a green card, if you're sponsoring a family member, or if you're on any temporary visa, this update affects your legal future. So stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what passed, who it helps, who it doesn't help, and what realistically happens next. My name is Raymond Crivello. I'm a senior immigration analyst and consultant, and on this channel, I break down complex immigration developments into clear, fact-based analysis you can actually understand. I don't deal in rumors. I don't create panic. I focus on what the law actually says and what it means for real people navigating the immigration system. Before we go further, I need to be very clear about something. I am not your attorney, and this content is for educational and informational purposes only. Always consult with a licensed immigration attorney about your specific case. Immigration law is complex, and individual circumstances vary significantly. What I'm providing here is policy analysis, not legal advice. Now, let's break down what actually happened. On February 12, 2026, the House of Representatives passed 3 separate immigration bills. These bills moved through the House as part of a larger legislative push that has been building momentum since the beginning of this congressional session. The votes were largely along party lines, which tells us something important about the political landscape these bills will face in the Senate. The first bill is called the Equal Access to Green Cards for Legal Employment Act, sometimes referred to as the EAGLE Act. This bill directly addresses the per-country cap system that has created massive backlogs for employment-based green card applicants from India and China. Under current law, no single country can receive more than 7% of the total employment-based green cards available in any given year. This sounds fair on paper, but in practice, it has created wait times of decades for highly skilled workers from countries with large populations. What the EAGLE Act does is phase out these per-country limits over a 9-year transition period. It would allow USCIS to allocate green cards based on priority date rather than country of birth. For someone from India waiting in the EB2 or EB3 category, this could potentially reduce wait times from 30 or 40 years down to something more reasonable. But here's the catch. During the transition period, the bill includes provisions to prevent any single country from monopolizing the green card numbers. This means the relief won't be immediate, and it won't be evenly distributed across all categories. The second bill focuses on interior enforcement and increases resources for Immigration and Customs Enforcement, known as ICE. It expands detention capacity, adds funding for removal operations, and creates stricter penalties for certain immigration violations. This bill also includes provisions that would make it easier to deport individuals with certain criminal convictions, even if those convictions occurred years ago and the individual has been living in the United States legally since then. The third bill reforms the asylum process by raising the credible fear standard. Currently, asylum seekers who pass a credible fear interview are allowed to remain in the United States while their cases are heard by an immigration judge. This bill would raise the threshold for what constitutes credible fear, making it harder to pass that initial screening. It also expands expedited removal authority, which means certain individuals could be removed from the United States without appearing before an immigration judge. So who is directly affected by these bills? Let's start with the EAGLE Act. If you are an employment-based green card applicant from India or China, Particularly in the EB2 or EB3 categories, this bill could significantly reduce your wait time. However, if you're from a country that currently has shorter wait times, you might actually see your processing slow down during the transition period as USCIS reallocates numbers. This is what many green card applicants are misunderstanding. Eliminating per-country caps doesn't mean everyone gets their green card faster. It means the distribution changes. The enforcement bill affects green card holders and visa holders who have any interaction with the criminal justice system. Even minor offenses that wouldn't normally be considered deportable could potentially trigger removal proceedings under some of the expanded provisions. And because this bill increases ICE funding and detention capacity, we could see more aggressive enforcement actions across the board. The asylum bill primarily affects individuals arriving at the border seeking protection. But here's where this becomes critical. Changes to the credible fear standard and expedited removal procedures could also impact individuals who are already in the United States and are considering applying for asylum. If these bills become law, the legal landscape for asylum seekers would fundamentally shift. Let me give you a realistic example of how this could play out. Imagine a software engineer from India who has been waiting for an employment-based green card for 12 years. He's on an H-1B visa, his priority date is current, but he's been stuck in the administrative processing backlog. If the EAGLE Act becomes law and survives any legal challenges, he might see his case move forward within the next few years instead of waiting another decade. That's life-changing. That affects whether he can buy a house, whether he can start a business, whether his children can stay in the United States after they age out of dependent status. But at the same time, his colleague from Mexico, who filed just 2 years ago, might see her processing time increase because USCIS is now prioritizing older priority dates from high-demand countries. She's not being treated unfairly under the new system, but the change in allocation means her timeline shifts. This is the complexity of immigration reform. Helping one group often means adjusting the timeline for another. Now let's talk about what happens next, because this is what most people are missing. These bills pass the House. That is significant. It shows political will and momentum. But passing the House does not make something law. These bills now move to the Senate, where they face a much more uncertain path. The Senate has 60 days to consider these bills under the current legislative calendar. For a bill to pass the Senate, it typically needs 60 votes to overcome a filibuster. That means bipartisan support is essential. The EAGLE Act has historically had some bipartisan backing because it addresses a widely recognized problem in the employment-based green card system. But the enforcement and asylum bills are far more controversial and may struggle to get the necessary votes. Even if the Senate passes these bills, they would still need to go through a reconciliation process if the Senate version differs from the House version. Then the reconciled bill goes to the President for signature. The President has the power to veto any bill, which would send it back to Congress, where a 2/3 majority would be needed to override the veto. This is not a fast process. Even under the most optimistic scenario, we're looking at months before any of these bills could become law. There's one detail most people are missing. Even if these bills are signed into law, USCIS and DHS would need to draft implementing regulations. This is required under the Administrative Procedure Act. Agencies must publish proposed rules, accept public comment, review those comments, and then publish final rules. This process typically takes 6 months to a year, sometimes longer. So even after a bill becomes law, the practical impact might not be felt immediately. And we also have to consider the possibility of court challenges. Immigration reform almost always faces legal challenges. Advocacy groups, states, or affected individuals may file lawsuits arguing that certain provisions violate constitutional rights or exceed congressional authority. We saw this with DACA, with the public charge rule, with travel bans, and with asylum restrictions. Courts can issue preliminary injunctions that block implementation while the legal challenges proceed. This could delay the practical effect of these bills even further. So what should you do right now if you're in the immigration system? Let me give you a structured action plan. Step 1. Do not make any major decisions based on bills that have not yet become law. Continue to comply with your current visa status requirements. Do not let your work authorization expire. Do not overstay. Do not violate the terms of your status thinking that relief is coming. It might not come, or it might not come in time. Step 2. Gather and organize your immigration documentation. If you're an employment-based green card applicant, make sure you have copies of your I-140 approval, your priority date documentation, your labor certification if applicable, and all communication from USCIS. If these bills become law and USCIS begins implementing new procedures, you want to be ready to respond quickly. Step 3. Monitor official sources. Do not rely on social media rumors or unverified claims. Check the USCIS website, check the Federal Register for regulatory updates, and follow official congressional sources for legislative developments. Immigration policy is changing rapidly, and misinformation spreads even faster. Step 4. Be cautious of immigration scams. Whenever there's news about potential immigration reform, scammers come out promising guaranteed green cards or special processing. If someone is asking you to pay money up front for a service that sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Always verify the credentials of anyone you work with. Check the State Bar Association. Check the USCIS authorized representative list. Protect yourself. Step 5. Consult with a qualified immigration attorney about your specific situation. If these bills become law, the impact on your case will depend on your individual circumstances. An attorney can review your file, analyze how the new provisions might apply to you, and help you make informed decisions. This is not the time to guess. This is the time to get professional guidance. Let me put this in broader policy context. We are in a moment of significant political attention on immigration. Congress is actively debating multiple proposals. Some focus on enforcement. Some focus on legal immigration reform. Some focus on border security. The fact that these three bills passed the House together suggests a legislative strategy that combines enforcement measures with employment-based immigration relief. But we've been here before. In 2013, the Senate passed comprehensive immigration reform that included a path to citizenship, increased border security, and employment-based green card relief. The House never voted on it. The bill died. In 2007, similar efforts failed. Immigration reform is politically complex, and success in one chamber does not guarantee success overall. However, this protection may not be permanent. Even if these bills become law, future Congresses could amend them. Future administrations could interpret them differently. Immigration policy in the United States has been characterized by constant change and uncertainty. That's why staying informed is so critical. Let me reinforce what's at stake here. Immigration status affects family unity. It affects whether your spouse can join you in the United States. It affects whether your children can attend school here, whether they can access certain benefits, whether they age out of eligibility for dependent visas. Immigration status affects employment stability, your ability to work, to change employers, to start a business, to invest in your future. All of this depends on having the right immigration status. Immigration status affects financial security. Can you get a mortgage? Can you open certain types of bank accounts? Can you travel internationally without risking your ability to return? And immigration status affects your long-term residency and citizenship plans. Every delay, every policy change, every procedural shift can push your timeline further into the future. This is serious. This is your life. This is your family's future. So let's be very clear about where we are. 3 bills passed the House. That is a significant development. It shows momentum. It shows political will, but it is not the finish line. These bills must pass the Senate. They must be signed by the President. Regulations must be written. And all of this takes time. If you are in the immigration system, continue to follow the current rules. Do not violate your status. Do not make assumptions about relief that hasn't been enacted yet. and most importantly, stay informed with accurate, fact-based analysis. If you want accurate, fast, and reliable immigration updates, subscribe to Raymond Crivello right now and turn on notifications. Immigration policy is changing rapidly, and staying informed is no longer optional. It's essential. I want to hear from you in the comments. What visa category are you in? How would these bills affect your situation if they become law? And if you know someone who's waiting for a green card or navigating the immigration system, share this video with them. Factual immigration coverage matters, and your support helps me continue providing it. If this analysis was helpful, hit the like button. It tells YouTube to show this video to more people who need accurate information. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next update.